Hey, what's going on guys? Caleb Westhead here, and today I'm here to show you how to fillet this catfish. Now I'm going to show you a method that I use to get the cleanest, best tasting fillets off a cat. They're one of my favorite fish to eat. They have super moist, tender meat, and if you fillet them properly, you don't have to worry about any of that muddy flavor that they have a reputation for. Let's get started on this guy right now, and I'll show you how to do it. All right, the first thing I've done with this catfish is clip off the spine. So I've clipped off the back spine, clipped off the two side spines, and that's going to make this fish much easier to work with. Now the knife I'm going to be using is a 7-inch Bubba tapered flex conventional knife. I found a conventional knife to be the best way to clean a cat, but if you have a good electric fillet knife technique, leave it in the comments. Where we're going to start on this catfish is similar to a lot of other species, but there is a lot of differences in how a cat is kind of built. So right here you can see there's a pretty hard bone that comes down here right behind the gills, and that's going to kind of come up in here, and then the head basically starts a little bit further back. This is all hard bony head all the way back to here. So we're going to start right behind this bone. I'm going to cut straight down like this, and then I'm going to follow that meat just up to where it meets that hard head, and then I'm going to turn it right in there, and there's just a little chunk of meat in there. It's not very big. And now I'm going to follow just the center line, just above the center line here, right down to here. And when I get to here, there's a big bone that surrounds the base of this bony fin, and it kind of comes right down through here. So you have to actually come out and around it. And I leave my knife angled in towards the fish so that I can get that meat kind of underneath that bone. And then you can come back around to the center line again right there. And then we're just going to continue down the fish. So a little bit above center line. Okay, good. Right there. And I'm only cutting in about 1.5 inches or so. Now when I get to the front of this anal fin right here, that's where I know I can push my knife all the way through and take off the rest of the tail meat, which is all boneless. So we're just gonna cut our way right down through there all the way to the end of the tail and cut through. There you see we got a nice clean cut there. Now I'm gonna lift this back and I'm gonna cut straight forward until I hit the first rib, which is right there. And basically my knife is going to end up kind of just ahead of that anal fin and at a slight angle forward. And now I know I've hit that first rib. We got to cut over the top of the ribs. So I'm just going to go kind of follow my cut down that I made already on the back. You can hear my knife ticking along those ribs right there. So now I'm actually going to put the fish on its belly, and that's going to help pull this meat away. And I'm going to follow those ribs out and around. And basically on a catfish, the ribs come almost to the skin. So once you get out past about midway down the ribs, you can literally just cut that fillet right off at an angle like that. And you see you get that little bit thicker meat on the belly down here that way. And that pretty much gets all the meat off the cat. So there's kind of a notch here where I cut almost. It's like a V. So you go in and then back out and then around this little bone and then down through here. And then once you get to here, it's all gravy. But this is that little bit trickier area to navigate in a catfish. And we just cut through that really, really slick. So let's push this to the side and I'll show you how to skin this now. One thing I always like to do throughout this process is keep my table nice and clean. So keep the slime off it with that squeegee. Now I have a nice clean surface to skin this. All right, whenever I skin a fish, I always like to move it to the edge of the table. That makes it easier for my knife to kind of get a nice angle on it. Now on a catfish, there is a pretty good bloodline on the back side of the fillet. Between the skin and the meat, there's a red kind of bloodline that we don't want to get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my cut here on the tail, and I'm going to skin a little bit shallow. It takes a little bit longer, and you do have to have some knife control for this. but I'm not gonna skin this fish all the way down to the table. I'm just gonna leave a little bit of meat on the skin with that red nasty part on it, like so. Now see, I didn't leave much on there, but you can see all that red in there. That's all the bloodline. That's gonna stay with the skin. That's what gives that catfish the muddy flavor. And now you can see on this fillet, look how clean that is. If you skin that right down to the skin, there's gonna be a big red patch on the back of this, and that's gonna have that fishy, muddy flavor to it. Now see here, the only part that's left is this little bit right in the middle. And I'm just gonna split this fillet right down the center. So I'm just gonna kind of cut that red patch right out, and you kind of angle your knife in. There isn't much right on the lateral line, but the lateral line also has some flavor to it that you don't necessarily want. And I'm just gonna split that fillet right down the center, taking that red stuff out all the way down like that. A little bit on the tail there. There's very little meat on the very end of the tail. And that's how I fillet a catfish. So now I've got two nice, totally clean chunks of meat with none of that muddy flavor left in it whatsoever. All right, so let's do the second side. I'm gonna go through this a little bit quicker here. So we're just gonna cut, just like we did on the other side, around that bone there. Continue on. This is where having those spines cut off makes a big difference, because I can actually lay the catfish down. Okay, now we're gonna get to right here, push all the way through. Now we come back up here and go all the way up to that first rib right there. Flip the catfish this way, cut down in that notch. And then follow those ribs back up. Basically to right there, and that's about where the ribs meet the skin. Then we're just gonna slice that right off, just like that. Now we got both sides off. Now again, I like to clean my table before I skin it. Just keeps that extra slime and gunk off the meat. Now again, we're gonna start right here and keep our knife about 1/8 inch off the table, I would say 1/8 to 1/4, depending on the thickness of your fillet. It's a little bit tricky. It takes some practice to get it right. You don't want to leave a lot of meat on there, but just enough to keep that red meat off the fillet. It takes a sharp knife too. Okay, now on this one, see, I left a little bit on the tail, didn't get it quite all off of there. So I'll show you how I skin that off the fillet. So basically, if you leave a little bit on there, you can just take your knife and shave it off. Just like that, real easy. As long as you have a sharp knife. Again, that's a key to this whole thing. Now again, we're gonna split this. Just go in a little bit from the side, get that little bit of red, and then straight down. Same on the other side. Right all the way to the tail. Just like that. Two really nice, clean, totally clean chunks of meat that are gonna have very mild, juicy meat, no muddy taste whatsoever. So that's it, guys. Pretty simple, basic, but it definitely gives you the best tasting fillets off those cats. Now, if you found value in this video, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content like this. I'm gonna leave another video right here for you. We'll see you next time. Get hooked up.